Hi, I'm Kathleen Mullen from Harness Racing Australia. I'm the Equine Health and Welfare Manager. This is Buck, better known as Save Some Time to Dream. And this is our first of our training DVDs that we're hopefully going to be able to sort out for you guys to let you know a little bit about the process that we've used in taking Buck on his journey from track to hack. So he's had 113 race starts. He's won about $220,000 in prize money. So he's had plenty of life experience in terms of going on a float, obviously racing, trialling, and just generally being a really well-trained, well-rounded member of society. But now we're going to change everything up for him a little bit and introduce him to some saddle work. So this film or this video is going to cover some of the groundwork that we do, a little bit of lunging, and then finally the backing process to getting on the first time. Good boy. All right. So really fundamental part of getting your standardbred on the way to his track to hack journey is groundwork. So we've got him tacked up, ready to go, saddle and bridle is on. Obviously, one of the benefits of having your standardbred off the track is if they have raced or at least trialled, they're very familiar with their gear. Bridle obviously and rein aids that are associated with that are no problem. They are used to a girth of some sort, the saddle's slightly different. But at least they have worn something on their back, so you're already a long way in front there. Your groundwork though is one of the really critical parts of getting them going before you get on, is to make sure that you have got some buttons installed already. We basically want stop and go, and just some general basic ground manners, which most of the time are pretty good with the standies, but it's always a really good idea to run through this before you get on. And for the next few weeks, whilst he is being backed, and even after he has been ridden, we will still try to do 5 to 10 minutes worth of this groundwork stuff that I'm about to show you, just to make sure all the buttons are there, they're light, he's responsive, and he's ready for you to get on. Good boy. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is just test that he leads from a nice soft pressure. Basically, as soon as you lead forward, that pressure on the pole should encourage him to step forward. This is really important. It's something that's probably a little bit neglected a lot of times. This response to pressure is very helpful even when your horse is tied up. If you have a horse that pulls back, he's not really working off of this pressure, because that pressure behind the pole should encourage him to step forward, not to continue to pull back. So we're going to ask him to step forward. I have got my dressage whip here that I can tap him on the shoulder if I need to, if his response isn't light enough from the pole pressure from the reins. We'll see how we go. And we want him again to stop off of a light aid. That stop button's pretty critical to most things. Obviously your standardbreds have generally already been mouthed, but it's always a really good idea to test the brakes, so to speak. And you'll find that sometimes the standies are a little bit heavier in the mouth. You do want them to soften up and to go off of a light pressure, and this groundwork is a really good way to get that started. We'll ask him to step forward again. Again, light aid with the rein. We can tap him on the shoulder if he's a little bit dull. And again, a light aid to stop. So all of this you want to happen within about 2 or 3 beats or 2 or 3 strides. You can be a little bit stronger in terms of the pressure that you put on his head or the whip tapping in order to get the response to be a little bit quicker and a bit sharper. The whole idea is we want it light. We don't want to be dragging him forward. We want him to step nicely forward and also to stop nicely. One more. And we'll stop him. And again, to deepen that stop response, so get some better brakes installed, we can ask him to step back. As with everything, we want it light and within 2 to 3 beats. We've got the whip that we can tap him on the chest if we need him to step back if he's not being light enough from that rein aid. So with everything, but especially with the groundwork, it's all pressure release. So being able to take the pressure off the horse the minute that he does do what you're asking him to do is really critical to the learning process. If you continue to tap him on the shoulder when he's already stepping forward, he's not going to understand that stepping forward is the right answer because you're continuing to put the pressure on him in the form of that whip tap. And the same with the pulling forward with the rein. If you're still putting pressure on his poll when he has stepped forward, he's not going to quite understand that that's what you're looking for. So it's really critical to work on your timing and to make sure that the minute that he steps forward, that the whip tap stops. It's a little bit difficult on the side that I'm on. I'll try it on this side. Testing my ambidexterity. And again, the same thing. We will want him to step back. And the minute that he steps back, we are stopping with the tapping. Another really, really good trick or a good exercise to do is park. And that's just basically that unless you're giving the horse any kind of an aid, he's not doing anything. He's parked. So I'm able to walk around him. If he moves, you actually just straighten him up to where he was, park him. Not like stay with a dog, but same concept. And you should be able to step away from him because there is no pressure being applied to the reins or with the whip tap. So again, he shifts and that's fine. Sometimes it takes a minute, but it's a really, really underutilized and underrated option. A lot of times we think our horse leads really well. All he's doing is following us. He's not actually doing anything off of an aid. And that works great until you get him out at a show or at a competition or somewhere where he's under a little bit of pressure and he's a bit stressed or he's a bit nervous and he's looking to you for guidance and he's not necessarily listening to your aids. He just wants to follow you. So being able to have these aids really clear and really strong at home will help you a lot when you're out and about. So again, we're going to try this park. Again, see that we can make him stand there because there's no pressure being applied, therefore there's no aid, so therefore you should not be going anywhere buck. Good boy. So this is better. Good boy. We're happy with that. With a scratch is always really nice. Give him a scratch and let him know that he's done a good job. And we will just test out again that we've got his attention still. We want him to step forward off a light aid. Halt and step back. So you'll notice that as he steps back, I'm taking the pressure off, and then when I want him to take another step, I am just lightly tugging on those reins. Good boy. Good boy. Another thing to deepen that response in terms of the poll pressure is to get them to pop their head down. So again, just light pressure as he puts his head down to the level that you want it. Keep your head out of the way. I've seen too many people nearly lose teeth doing this. Keep your head out of the way of their head. When he goes to pop his head up, you put the pressure on till he pops his head down. I have a very light pressure to no pressure down here now because he is where I want him to be. And then you just gently bring his head back up. And so this is just deepening that response to the poll pressure. You can get a little bit tougher in terms of tugging. If he doesn't want to pop his head down, you need to stay till he pops his head down. Don't relieve that pressure. There we go. You release the pressure when he's giving you the correct response. So if you need to be a little bit stronger in terms of tugging, just light little tugs to get his head down where you want it. Pop his head back up. This can be really good when you're away from home. When a horse pops his head down, it's normally to graze, so it is a relaxing thing that does help him with his endorphins and just feeling a little bit more relaxed and chilled out. As always, as I said before, keep your head out of the way of theirs in case they bring it up quickly. But it is another really, really positive, helpful little aid and task to get them to do to get their mind on you. Another thing on the ground, probably the last of the groundwork things that we'll really work on is getting him to move his hindquarters around. Standardbreds, as a general rule, have spent most of their life between shafts. So, from here back, they are very rigid because they're between a set of shafts. From the girth forward, they may have reins, they may have a lugging pole or some other equipment that keeps their neck very straight. So they are very much used to operating only in straight lines, and it can take them a little bit to understand that their front legs and their back legs can work independently of each other. So being able to get his hindquarters to move away from pressure will help you a little bit later down the track when you're under saddle in being able to get him to bend, flex, and eventually work on things like leg yield. I will pop towards the camera so that you can see a little bit better what I'm asking of him. But essentially I want to tap just at that point between sort of the hock and the stifle until he moves across. I want this leg that I'm tapping to move away from the pressure of the whip. Again, the release is really, really critical. Tap, tap, tap until he shifts that leg. The minute that that leg comes off the ground, you cease tapping. Good boy. So at the start, you just want to do one step at a time. Tap, 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 till he shifts the leg. Keep tapping because it hasn't come across. There we go. That's what we wanted, the leg to cross. It's no good if he does it without the aid. You don't want him to start to anticipate and start to move across when you haven't actually tapped him. Ooh. Now we don't want him to step forward. The only thing that we want to happen from this aid is that that leg is crossing over. Good boy. Good boy. We'll do the same on this side. Again, this can be a little bit tricky if you're very right-hand dominant or left-hand dominant, being able to swap between hands, but that's okay. It helps you as much as them. So I don't want him to move yet. So what I'll do is actually habituate him to the whip and just let him know that it's okay. I'm not actually doing anything to him. You just need to stay calm and just hold that whip on his body. No, just stay there. That's okay. There you go. There you go. So the important thing is that when they are shying away from the whip or any of the equipment, is to spend a little bit of time habituating them. Buck's generally been very relaxed about the whip and all the equipment that we've been using here, but if you need to, just spend a little bit of time just running the whip over them, not asking for anything, but just placing the pressure on without actually asking for anything and just letting him know that, look, this is not going to hurt him, it's not going to do anything other than give him some aids. So again, same thing, we're starting to anticipate here, so we're starting to think we're a little bit cleverer than we are. But you can see now that he's like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm not concerned. And you can do the same thing on this side, tap, 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 till the leg, you can increase the pressure. That's the wrong response, that's the right response. So if they go to kick out, you need to actually continue to keep tapping until they move that leg across, because kicking out's the wrong answer, so you don't want to release the pressure while they're kicking out, otherwise essentially you're teaching them that kicking out's what you want. So again, we're going to tap, 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 keep tapping while he's kicking out because he hasn't moved the leg across. Keep tapping, there we go. We release the pressure when that leg crosses over. What we're looking for is that this leg crosses and moves away. So again, if you need to habituate him for a second, hold the whip just on his body without asking for anything. And then tap, 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 increasing the pressure till the leg comes across. Good boy, good. And again, we'll step him forward, off that light aid, and stopping off the light aid as well. That's probably about it for your groundwork side of things. You would want to do a very a shortened version of what I've just shown you there. Just go through each of those responses before you get on each time. It can be really, really helpful when you're away from home. It gives you a bit of a routine to work on before you even get in the saddle. It can be a little bit stressful being out at an event, but being able to go through your little groundwork routine and get the horse listening to you, focused on you and what you're asking, can be a really, really helpful thing for both him and you to feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more safe. We'll work on doing some lunge work in a minute. That'll be our next job. All right, so after we've done a little bit of groundwork, the next thing that we would like to normally do with our guys when we're taking them from the track is to do a little bit of lunging work. As I was saying a little bit earlier, the standardbred's obviously very well mouthed already. used to wearing gear of different sorts to this, but you still need to get them used to the saddle and used to the stirrups and things flapping around and the flaps on the saddle themselves, because that can actually sometimes be a little bit of a shock for them compared to the gear that they're used to wearing. Lunging is a very personal thing in terms of the gear and the setup that you want to use. I like to just tuck my reins under the saddle here, keeps them out of the way. I don't necessarily want any side reins or anything this early in the piece. I don't want to confuse any rein aids that I might be giving him with having side reins that are kind of forcing him into any kind of a position at the moment. The standie's probably going to find life a little bit hard on a 20-metre circle as it is, having been used to obviously racing on 1,000-metre tracks. So anything that's going to tie his head unnaturally into a position this early in the piece, I just find it's a complication that you don't need at this point. Lunging, I like to have just one of these little double clips here that clips onto each side of the bit. Again, it allows me to do the same sort of rein aids that I was doing in my groundwork earlier. If you want to use a lunging cavesson with the clips on the nose or whatever you're comfortable with, it's not going to make a great deal of difference, but I just find that if you've already started giving them some education and training in your groundwork with the bit as the primary sort of aid, that a setup like this is usually really good to keep that moving and keep it going. Again, 99% of the standardbreds that you're going to get off the track won't have been lunged. So again, it's going to be something that you do have to teach them. What you will find though is that a lot of them have been long-reined. You can use this to your advantage because then they are used to taking aids and taking direction from someone that's on the ground that's kind of a distance away from them. So it's not completely foreign to them for you to be not on top of them or right next to them asking them to do things. So you can use that to your advantage a little bit by trying to actually position yourself outside of kicking range, of course, but trying to position yourself a little bit to the rear of the horse and asking him to go forward. Just letting that rein go out. Just start at the walk. You've got your whip here, so you can kind of create a bit of a triangle shape between the lunge rope and the whip, driving him forward. Again, the standardbred's prior knowledge of voice aids is going to come in really handy when you're lunging, because clicking them up is not foreign. They understand that that means go forward. If you were breaking a horse in from scratch that hadn't had the harness experience, obviously you're going to have to make sure that they've got that under control as well. And again, you're supplementing it with your lunge whip, which as much as anything is actually there to keep them out. They'll want to come back to you and the safety of you as their handler. So using that whip just to gently drive them out and keep them away from you is a really good thing. At the moment, I have got the stirrups, run up. I will drop those down at some point, but when you're teaching them to lunge, it's going to be a lot for them to take in. If they're learning to lunge, they've got stirrups and things flapping around that they've not understood before. So give them one thing at a time to focus on. Leave your stirrups run up. You could potentially begin your lunge training without any gear on at all. Just a bridle, and that will really make it very easy for them. But I would advise that you do a little bit of lunge work with your saddle on prior to getting on or trying to back them, because it just allows them to get used to the way the saddle feels on their back. It's obviously larger than a harness racing saddle. It covers a different area on their back. So do make sure you do that. But for the initial lunging, if you want to do that with no gear on at all, that's fine. Oh, mate. Halt. So again, we're going to try and incorporate voice aids with a little bit of a rein aid if we have to pull. Halt, good boy. Walk on, walk on. And again, lunging's very personal. If you want to say walk on, walk, move, dance, I don't care, whatever your buttons are. But again, keep them consistent so that he does start to understand some of those basic voice aids. Oh, mate, halt, halt. And with your lunge work, I just start off with getting them to walk and halt and keeping it really relaxed. The more that you can make it a relaxed environment for them, the better it is. They are a racehorse and they have been a racehorse, so you know they do get adrenalized and ready to do something. So the more that you can explain to them, no, this is a change of pace now, we're going a little bit slower. the better you're going to find it. Welcome. And again, just stepping away from them and just keeping out of that kicking range, just in case. But trying to aim your body towards the back of the horse a little bit just can help them, because they've been long-reined. They are kind of used to someone being here at a distance and sending them forward. So you can gradually open out the lunge rein as they get a little bit more confident in what they're doing, and as you get confident with what you're doing. You just want to keep him in a nice marching walk and just clicking him up as he slows down. This is where you begin to do a lot of the training that will help you under saddle in terms of keeping him in cruise control. I want him to continue just to walk. I shouldn't have to hassle him the whole time. If I can get him to just walk in a nice marching, steady 4-beat walk without me having to chase him and click him up every stride, that's kind of ideally what we're aiming for. So when he slows down, you're sending him forward again releasing the pressure, i.e. stop clicking him up or stop waving your whip when he speeds up to that desired tempo or rhythm that you're wanting him to walk at. Oh mate, hold, hold. Again, if he doesn't listen to the voice aid, hold. Just pop on that rein a little bit. And again, the groundwork that we did earlier in terms of parking kind of comes into play a little bit here. There's no aids being applied, so he should stand there until he's asked to do something else. Again, he's kind of coming to face me, so I'd like to step back towards the back of him. Always staying out of kicking distance, but aiming yourself at that sort of hind quarter end. You'll be surprised what your body language will inadvertently tell the horse. And just aiming your body, which seems strange, but aiming it at the back of him as opposed to the front of him seems to drive them forward a little bit better. Now, depending on your horse's individual balance, some of them will find trotting on the lunge really easy. Some of them will need as much lunge rope as you can give them. It's all a little bit of trial and error. I'm a little bit trapped there. Welcome. Now this arena has a very slight downhill tilt, so I'm not going to ask him to trot here yet. I'm going to wait till we're back up about here. Trot, trot, trot. Good boy. Now again, you'll notice that I was clicking, trotting and waving my whip until he made that trot transition. You want to hassle him until he makes that transition, with the idea that each time he makes a transition, you're going to have to hassle him a little bit less. He'll go off that light aid. Trot. Trot, trot, trot. Trot, trot. Good boy. Now Buck was a pacer, but we're very lucky in the fact that he doesn't show a lot of pace naturally. So far in his retraining, he has been pretty comfortable with trotting at most times. If he does get very stressed, and look, all of them will get stressed at some point, a little bit nervous, they will revert back to the pace, because when they're in an adrenalized state, that's what they're used to doing. Buck spent quite a number of years. He started racing as a 2-year-old, trot, and raced through until he was 10. So that's a long time for him to get rid of the pace out of his repertoire. But we're very lucky in that on this occasion, we've got a horse that's pretty comfortable with trotting. And he's on a reasonably short rein here, but I am following him around and giving him more room. Sometimes that works a little bit better if you've got a shorter rein, but you are walking a circle with them to make the circle itself bigger without necessarily having you too far away from them and losing a little bit of control. And again, the same thing, we want to try and get that cruise control happening. I don't want to be clicking him up the entire time to make sure that he stays trotting, or to be pulling him back if he's trying to take off in a canter or a pace or something. And that's really fundamental, is to stay in that rhythm the whole time. Again, it's cruise control. It's the same concept as parking. I haven't asked you to go any quicker or slower, so you should stay at the pace that you're at. So at this point, I'm still having to swing my whip quite a bit and click him up just to keep him in that rhythm. But the whole idea is that eventually he should just go around on his own. Until you ask him to walk or to trot or to do anything different, he should stay in the pace and in the rhythm and tempo that he's in. Walk, mate, walk. Again, that body language of stopping, asking, combined with the voice aid. Now I've started him on the left rein, which is obviously probably a more comfortable rein for most of us because it's on that near side that we're used to leading from. It's also a lot more comfortable for the standies. 9 out of 10 are a little bit more comfortable operating on this left rein due to the fact that they race on that rein. So they will have done countless laps going this direction. So starting on the left rein can at least give you a bit of a positive beginning, but be prepared for the right rein to be a little bit trickier. Oh, mate, halt, halt. You can pop your whip in front of their nose, which can actually help deepen that stop aid. Good man. Again, I'm going to ask him just to head in the opposite direction. I'm aiming my body at the back of him. I'm staying out of kicking range, but I am aiming my body at the back of him to send him forward. As I said, the right rein can definitely be a little bit trickier for you and for them because you're on the what feels to be the wrong side, but also for them it's the wrong side for what they're used to going at. Good boy. Now, if you've gotten this far in your lunging work without any issues, it can be really tempting to want to drop those stirrups down because you got the left rein going and you walked and you trotted and everything was fantastic and everything was great. Don't take them down just yet. The horse's brain is such that doing things on the other rein can really be a completely different world and a completely different concept for them. So it's not a given that because you've got it right on the left rein that everything's going to automatically go great on the right rein. We're cheating a little bit here because Bucky's obviously a little bit further along in his education than the breaking stage, but he's not that far along that he doesn't still need a reminder every now and then of what he's doing. You can see here that he's walking in a nice steady rhythm. He's not slowing down, he's not speeding up. I'm not having to click him up every stride, but I am still having to remind him every now and then. He's probably not used to me talking this much while I'm lunging either, so he's probably trying to make sense of what I'm going on about. Again, ask him to trot. Aim yourself at the back of them. Trot, trot. Keep hassling them till the moment they break into trot. And you want to get that nice trot rhythm that you were having earlier on the left rein, happening on the right rein. Again, I don't have him on a super long rope, but I am walking a circle to allow him to get out on a bigger circle without me necessarily having a really long rein and starting to lose control. Trot. Good boy. Now, similar to the groundwork that I did earlier, you may have to habituate them to the lunge whip. Buck doesn't seem particularly upset by it, but you will find that some horses, depending on the life that they've had prior to you getting them, might be a little bit concerned about the lunge whip and what you're waving at them and things like that. So you may need to spend some time with your groundwork with a lunge whip with the extra length on it, just to give them the opportunity to understand that it's an aid and not anything that they should be worried about. Good boy. Come on. So we're getting a really nice rhythm here for him. He's trotting along happily. There's no pressure on those reins. They're just there, tucked up out of the way. Trot him, which at this early stage is all that you're really asking for. Walk, mate, walk, walk, walk. Now ideally what you want to do in this period where you're lunging them is to get them doing a lot of transitions, changing direction. There's no point in just lunging them around in circles for 20 minutes without asking them any questions. Standardbred's cardiovascular systems are fantastic. He'll trot slowly in a circle for hours if you let him. What you really want though is to get him responsive to the aids, walking, trotting, halting, all that sort of stuff. Now that we've gone on both reins, the next thing that we'll want to do is to bring him in and just drop those stirrup irons down so that they can bang and flap against him a little bit, and he can start to realise that that's also not a problem. Oh, mate. Halt. Halt. Good boy. We'll just take them, leave the rein tucked underneath so that it stays out of the way. Good man. But just let them hang. They're going to drop, they're going to tap, they're going to rub him. And that's okay. You might find that the saddle flap flips up. All of that stuff's fine. It's kind of want to get them to think about that now without you in the saddle as well. But again, we'll start on that left rein because that's what he's comfortable with. Aiming towards the back of him. And just be prepared that they might get a little fright when those stirrups first start flapping or moving or touching them on the sides. Be prepared for that. They might shoot forward or something like that. You generally, there's a multiple schools of thought. There's the school of thought that says you just let them run and buck and get it out of their system. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that as a theory, because I just think that the more that the horse runs and is frightened, the more that the stirrups flap, and it becomes a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy that the horse gets more and more frightened, the stirrups flap and everything happens, and it just becomes a terrifying experience for everyone. I would prefer if they were getting really stressed or frightened by the stirrups flapping, to just stop them calmly, give them a scratch, give them a pat, let them know it's okay, then send them out again. In the walk, you should find that it's not going to do a lot. You can see that they're just swinging a little bit there. They're not doing a great deal. So unless your horse is hypersensitive, your walk should be fine. It's when they trot that you may find that they get a little bit stressed about things. Again, I don't have him super far out for the exact reason that I mentioned. If he does get a fright and want to start to get upset and run off, I'd rather calmly bring him back in than just to let him burn it out of his system. I know that that's sometimes different trainers have different theories and different concepts, but I subscribe to a lot of Dr. Andrew McLean's theories, and he's exhibiting a fear response, and you don't really want them to exhibit any of those fear-based responses any longer than they have to. So he's walking, he's pretty happy, the stirrups are just lightly touching him. We'll ask him to trot. Trot. And you'll see now, obviously they are flapping around. This is where the noise and obviously the feeling of them flapping may be concerned, may not. A lot of them are really good. Buck never at any point when we first did this was too concerned by them. But every horse is different, so you've got to take every step to ensure that the transition from track to hack is really as stress-free, trot, trot, as it can be for both of you. Good boy. Walk. Good man. And halt. 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 Thank you. Good boy. All right. We'll send him round on the right rein now. Again, while you're changing directions and things, those stirrups are just flapping away. Good boy. Come on. Good boy. Come on. Trot. Trot. Good boy. Not much in life phases, Buck. We've been very lucky so far. And you will find with a huge percentage of the standardbreds that most of this is simple and straightforward. as long as you're careful in what you do, you give them plenty of warning. And as I said, that pressure and release is really critical in training any response in a horse. Taking the pressure off at the right time and applying the pressure until the response happens. Walk, mate. Walk. Now we could spend quite a lot of time on lunging and groundwork. I know a lot of the masters of the days of yore do a lot of lunge work, but at this point for what we're doing, which is essentially getting the horse ready to back, this is about the extent of what I would like to ask them on the lunge. At some stage, canter, which we will cover in one of the later videos, is a really good thing to start on the lunge, because it just allows them to balance themselves without the added weight and the added sometimes instability of having a rider on board, you know, shifting their weight and things like that. So I do find that, that doing a bit of canter work on the lunge can be a really good way to get them started on cantering. But for the stage that we're at the moment of getting him ready to back, I'm not going to add canter in as an extra thing that may stress him or may cause him to get a little bit uptight and a bit worried. We'll stick with what he knows, which is the walking and trotting. At this point, the aids and the responses to the aids are the most critical parts of things. So we're pretty much ready to get on now, I hope. Good boy. So now we're pretty much ready to back them. I'm doing this out here in a larger arena space. If you've got a round yard, which we do, you can do it in the round yard. I find it very dependent on the horse as to where I want to back them. I always suggest if you're a little bit inexperienced and you have any concerns at all that the horse is a bit flighty, that a round yard's obviously a safer place. This arena is fully enclosed and fenced off, so it's reasonably safe. It is a bigger area, but I just find, for the purposes of filming today and also just for my own comfort, I do like a slightly larger area, as long as I know that it's safely fenced and enclosed. I'm not too fussed. I sometimes prefer a little bit of space to help these guys. They're used to working on an 800, 900,000 metre track, so the larger area I sometimes find can be a little bit better for them. The ground yard can be a bit enclosed, but that's personal preference, and I would suggest, like I said, if you're at all nervous or inexperienced at a round yard, smaller area is a good place to back them first off. So I've got my mounting block here. Again, Buck's been habituated to this block. He's had plenty of time to have a look at it, have a sniff, have a smell. You can't just drag them up there and start climbing on a bucket and think that they're not going to get concerned. This is where our groundwork starts to come into play a little bit in terms of that parking that I was speaking about, where I want him to stand in a spot, and until I ask him to do anything else, he's got to stand there. So you can see I'm not hassling him or anything like that. He's happy to stand. He's comfortable with the mounting block as a concept. When I'm first bringing them up, I will sometimes bang it and tap it so that when I stand on it, it's not frightening. If he steps back out of that parking position, just shift him. It seems minute, but it's just really good to be that particular. Park him back where he was. Get used to the noise and the stepping and whatever else. Beautiful. And then step up. Now again, depending on how upset and how nervous your particular horse is, if they've had a lot of race work, they might not be concerned. A lot of horses may have been sat on at different times before. Gauge their body language. I'm up here, he's pretty comfortable with that. I'm on this first step, I'm on this first rung, and he's not too stressed. I can feel he's pretty soft and relaxed. He's chewing the bit and he's using his mouth and his lips. He's pretty comfortable. Read their body language and only put as much pressure on them as you think that they're comfortable with. You may spend a whole day standing on a mounting block, and I can tell you that one of the worst horses that I ever had to back was actually my Gary Owen Standardbred, MF Hollywood, and I spent a ridiculous amount of time after our first failed backing attempt on a mounting block, waving my legs, swinging my legs around, doing everything I'm about to show you in order for him to get used to that. And I spent several days where I never actually got on his back. I just simply stood beside him until he was comfortable with me being up here, with the saddle, with everything that's going on, which is so different to what he's used to as a racehorse. There'll be a heap of racehorses you can get on the first day and they won't blink. Some of them are a bit different, some of them are a bit special. Read their body language. So again, I'm going to pop up onto this top step now. He can see me up above him, which sometimes they can be a little bit frightened about. You have got your reins here. If they walk away, really calmly, just reset them. As I was saying before, that parking stuff that you would have done in your groundwork is really, really important for this side of things. He's not being asked to do anything. No aids are being applied, therefore he's not doing anything. He's in park. So I'm up here. He's quite comfortable and quite aware of the fact that I am up here. If he was to move around, I would reset him, but he's comfortable and he's standing here. He's quite fine. Again, I'm going to sort of just touch the saddle and move it round. They're used to obviously something around them, given they've got a racing saddle on, but a riding saddle is obviously a lot different in terms of shape and in terms of the pressure points. So I like to just put my body weight on there, move it round. Again, gauging their level of comfort with this is really critical, and just keep stepping forward each time that they look like they're okay with it. Every horse is going to be slightly different. So the next thing afterwards will be to start to lean across here and put my hand on this side. A funny little anecdote was that, again, the Gary Owen standardbred that I had, MF Hollywood, you couldn't actually take your hand away from his neckline and pat him for the first couple of weeks because he was terrified at where this floating invisible hand would come from. So you get all levels. Buck doesn't seem particularly concerned by this. I can move my arm around here, I can wave it and flap it round. That's important because when you go to swing a leg over, obviously that leg comes flying through the air. You'd want him to understand that it's not going to come down and thump him. It's going to come down nicely next to him. So giving this arm movement around here just to let him know that it's all fine. Again, we're not getting a lot in the way of reactions from him. So what we then would like to do is just to lean our body weight on here, still standing on your mounting block, but just leaning your body weight on there and just seeing how they respond, how they react to you putting your weight over that saddle. Again, we're getting absolutely no reaction. If at any point we were getting a reaction out of him, it's a matter of simply stepping off the step, resetting him, parking him into position again, and trying not to get flustered at all, because you're just they're going to feed off of that energy that you're creating. So it's really important just to stay relaxed. Don't put any time pressures on yourself or on them. If you don't get on today, so be it. You'll get on tomorrow. If you don't get on tomorrow, you'll get on the next day. It's all about staying nice and safe, but honestly, you'll find that most of them aren't a problem in the world. So again, we're going to lean our body weight on here. I'm a little bit height challenged, so I actually have to do a bit of a jump to hang over the saddle, which I probably wouldn't advise. If you can be either a little bit taller or a slightly higher mounting block, that can sometimes help. But I like to hang over their back. See, he's moved, so what I'm going to do is just reset him back where he was and go back to what I was doing. So when you are hanging over their backs, I like to hang over their back first because it allows me a really easy exit. If the horse is at all concerned, I just have to slide down and I'm going to land on my feet. If I swing a leg over first, I've sort of got to dismount, and that can sometimes be a little bit harder. Again, personal preference. You'll find people that are quite happy to swing a leg over. This is what works for me and has worked for the dozens of standardbreds that we've now broken in and re-educated here. So what I'm going to do is just a little jump and lean. Oh, mate. And get him just used to, he's taking my full body weight now. Get him used to that. Again, he may not be fussed. We don't want him to walk off. If he walks forward or walks backwards, we want to block that, slide off, and then try this again, which is what we're going to do anyway. We're going to do this a couple of times. But yeah, if the horse at all moves away, you're simply sliding down, resetting him, repositioning him. Now you will find that they may shift their body weight just slightly when you jump on. You've got to make a bit of a judgment call as to whether that's a horse just resetting his legs in order to accommodate your extra body weight, or whether he is choosing to walk away. Because if he is just shifting a leg slightly to accommodate your body weight, I wouldn't necessarily want to reset his legs for that if he's just trying to make himself comfortable to accommodate your weight. So you do have to make a little bit of a judgment call there. But once again, we can do the lean over the saddle, I've got nothing for you. The other thing that I like to do is to flap my legs around, which he finds very interesting. Don't bite me. Back away. Because again, that leg is going to come over the horse. So you want him to be prepared for that movement. So you've got to do a little bit of ballet up on the mounting block. This will test your flexibility as well too. But again, it's that concept of the fact the leg's going to come over his rump and touch him on the bum potentially. Ideally not, but you may drag a foot over as you get on. You want him to be prepared for all things. Please don't bite me. So you can see, again, we're not getting any reaction out of him. If we were getting a reaction, it would be the same thing. Step off the block, reset, pop him under that pressure, and then give him a pat, tell him he's good. He's got to learn that he's just got to stand there and be okay with whatever it is that you're doing. I'm going to reset him slightly because he's just a fraction too far forward for me to jump on. So this time, when we hang over his body, we're going to see if we can ask him to walk on. Again, he's had some voice aids, so clicking him on should hopefully get us the response that we want from him. Again, I'm a little bit short, so I have to jump. But hopefully you can just lie across. And now what we want him to do is actually see if we can get him to walk on, which can sometimes be hard. It's good if you've got someone on the ground to help you, to lead them forward. But if not, usually they will answer. Now getting him just to walk a few strides forward is really good because sometimes a lot of horses, the standies, have a bit of a delayed reaction to the fact that your body weight's on them. It's not till they start to walk and the body weight shifts and move and the saddle shifts and moves that they start to go, oh my God, what are you doing up there? I'm not quite sure. But again, you're in this position, you're able just to keep your body weight not quite centered, where you've got a little bit more of your weight towards your feet than you do your head, so that when you jump off, you go that way, not that way. Again, we jump down, he's pretty comfortable. He may or may not be comfortable, so again, you just need to do that as many times as you possibly can. Step around. Good boy. Reset. Reset. Good boy. You know, and if I had a horse that I was really concerned about throwing a leg over, I'd get them to carry me around while I was walking, just hanging over them. If I had someone on the ground to lead them forward, that's fine. I always recommend that you have someone nearby when you're doing this. We have a rule here that you don't ride alone. And I think that that's a rule that should be in place everywhere because, look, you never know whether you're backing a horse or whether it's a horse that you've had for years. You should always have someone that's aware and ready for you to call them and know that you're up to something with your horse. Again, he's pretty comfortable with that, so we're going to move forward onto putting our foot in the stirrup. Again, just the toe and just rocking the saddle a little bit. Some people may find this overkill, and it's going to depend entirely. It appears to be overkill with Buck at the moment because the attitude he's showing is one of complete disinterest. But if you had a horse that was very, very uptight about the backing process, this wouldn't be overkill because you're just allowing the horse a step-by-step introduction to what you're planning to do, so that when you do throw a leg over, it's actually not that much of a shock at all because you've put all of the elements, the swinging the leg over the rump, putting this foot in the stirrup, having a limb flapping on this side, having your body weight on there, all of those elements have been put in. So again, he stepped out of the way. So we really calmly, don't get flustered, just reset him, pop him back where he is. Go away. Put that foot in the stirrup and swing on. Now I keep my feet out of the stirrups. Once I've got my foot in to get on, I actually do keep my feet out of the stirrups when I'm first backing a horse. Again, birds. Again, from a safety perspective, if I've got my feet out of the stirrups, it's one less thing I have to do if I have to bail out for any reason. I'd rather not. But if my feet are out of the stirrups, I don't have to worry about kicking them out. It's one less step. Once you're on board, just give them a scratch and just let them know that you're up there. They may pop forward, they may shoot forward. Just block that straight into a halt. You just need them to stand here for a minute. Again, that park button becomes more and more important the further along that you get. But we're up here, he's comfortable, he's not moving. When you want him to go forward, what you need to do is actually add in that voice command, something that a lot of us that have ridden for a long time but haven't necessarily ridden a standardbred struggle to come to terms with is this automatic concept that when you kick the horse, he goes forward. The standardbred has no idea what that means. So most of them will eventually walk forward because they're not actually sure what else to do, but you're kicking them and it's kind of annoying. But what a really good idea is to add in that voice command of just clicking them up in conjunction with using your leg aid. And that allows them to use an aid that they know and understand. It's supplemented with an aid that they don't understand, and eventually the two of them will work together and you'll be able to stop the clicking up because he'll move entirely from the leg aid. Feet out of the stirrups, you've got a decent short rein, you've got your helper nearby, you're in an enclosed area, covered all the safety bits. So you can see I'm clicking and kicking him on. But you could find that kicking them on makes absolutely no difference to them whatsoever. It will take them a minute to understand. Good boy. So we're just literally walking and halting. You need to ensure that those brakes are installed. And that's the most important part in this backing process. So you can see that I'm clicking him up and I'm tapping him with my feet. Good boy. Good boy. Really clear aids when you're backing them. Very, very clear stopping aid. The minute that their feet stop, you stop pulling the reins, and the same with the go forward aid. Clicking and tapping with your legs to the minute that he, or the very millisecond that he puts one leg forward, it indicates that he's understood the aid. That release of the pressure is really vital. You're teaching him something entirely new here, so you may as well make it perfect. Good boy. And again, you want him to start to walk in a nice rhythm. So the kick and the click in combination. Good boy. And again, changing direction. I've had him on the left rein because that's what he's comfortable with. From a racing perspective, you'll find that the right rein can tend to be a little bit trickier. Not all horses, they're all different, but as a general rule, the right rein's always a little bit stickier. And again, stopping aid off of a nice soft aid and sending him forward. Good boy. Good boy. And it's really important at this point in time that you're very clear with your aids. You're not kicking at the same time that you're pulling the reins or anything like that, because this is your foundation for everything that you build. And like anything, the standardbred is not any different to any other horse. It's this foundation work that you build upon, and you'll find that if you haven't done the foundation work, whether it's on the ground or it's on the lunge, or it's in this initial backing stage, that you'll start to find cracks and holes in your work as you build a little bit further up. It's a house with a rubbish foundation will eventually fall down, and it's a little bit the same with your retraining. Don't rush this stuff in favour of, I just want to get him going, because as you found with the park and the other groundwork that we did, it fed all the way through our work up until this point. Now, if you're comfortable that the horse is not too concerned, not too stressed, you can take your stirrups up. Always making sure that you are kind of doubling up those aids with the leg and the click till he starts to get the idea that the leg does mean forward. Now, depending on where you are in terms of whether you're in a round yard or whether you are in a larger arena, depending on how the horse has taken the process up to this point, you may choose to just dismount, put them away, with a carrot and a kiss and tell them that they've been great. Again, don't add too many things into one session. Pick a goal and work towards it. We'll talk more about that in some of our later videos where we start to go a little bit further into the re-education process. But for now, hopefully you've had a pretty good understanding of the groundwork that we've brought in and the reason that we've done it. A little bit of the lunging work and allowing them to get used to the saddle and used to the stirrups and things like that. And then the backing process. Now, everyone's backing process and everyone's re-educating is going to be slightly different. So I hope that you can take on from these bits what you can, and if it's slightly different for you, then that's great too. But I think that's probably about it.